There's a new phenomenon of like the biggest national pundits all talking about Trey Lance and saying like the dumbest stuff. And it makes me chuckle, but like, why all of a sudden, why are the Niners and their quarterback now? Because it was always like Dallas, right? You turn on TV and they're yelling about the Cowboys. Like, who cares? All of a sudden, it's Trey Lance. Everyone needs to talk about the 49ers, and which is new. And it's like, why do you think that is, man? All of a sudden, Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd, everyone has to say something dumber than the previous guy about Trey Lance and the Niners. And they don't know this team. Like, it's like they just entered the conversation 3 months ago, and they're like, I have something to say. No, you don't. Sit down. Anyway, why?
Is it new? It's not new. It's kind of like, I think maybe it's been taking a lot of steam lately because now that he is a starting quarterback, but there's been a lot of stupid things getting said that it was just like, what? Huh? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
The only one who I thought made sense, because I kind of made the point about it when they brought Jimmy G back, was Peter King in terms of just leaving the option there. But everything else, like he's talking about like just hedging his bets and all that stuff about like talking like, oh yeah, but ultimately, yeah, like the Colin Cowherds, the Stephen A. Smith, that's just their shtick, man. It's just to say something outrageous that they don't know about. I mean, hell, you had Stephen A. I think for a year, he talked about Hunter Henry on the Chargers or someone, and that player wasn't even on that team for like a year or two already.
Yeah.
So these guys don't really look at anything. They just read a headline. They read a story that takes like 30 seconds, one person probably, and just end up about it. But the other players are like, the other players in the media in terms of like national for the NFL, they like to pick on Lance because it's ultimately the unknown. Everyone hates the unknown, and essentially kind of like Kyle did too a little bit. That's why they don't want to roll with Trey year one, because they just said, why not just keep going with Jimmy? I mean, I think ultimately that's where I keep seeing it.
Right. It seems like with the national guys, their job is to talk about the stories that get the most engagement, that get the most clicks and views. And in the past, it was the Cowboys. But now it's the Niners, in particular Trey Lance, because the Niners were almost in the Super Bowl last year. And everyone knows if Trey Lance is better than Jimmy, that they could win the Super Bowl this year. But no one really knows what the hell Trey's going to be. He's a huge mystery. And like all the people covering the team that actually know this team and have been following it for more than 3 months pretty much feel like the Niners are doing the right thing. This is the time to go to Trey Lance. We all get it. It's the people that don't know a damn thing about the 49ers and just started looking into them recently because that you get views if you talk about the Niners, don't see the logic in moving to Trey Lance. And so it seems to me it's just people who don't know the first thing about this team, who just joined the conversation and are trying to say something to stand out. All the people locally are saying Niners doing the right thing. So people nationally being like, Niners don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they're mostly doing it just because they're going to get a lot of views. And then if and when they're wrong, they'll just move on to the next thing and pretend like it never happened, which is lame. That's the way I see it.
No, yeah. And plus they know what they're doing to get out of reaction out of people too. They just see the way, like, hey, look, if we talk about this, we can kick the beehive and like it'll run into other beehives, and then boom, we get what we want. We create stories, aggregate, and we can build upon that and then let the full circle. It's really like a formula. Yeah. It's like the Y equals MX plus B of national media, but I wouldn't even know how to input that because I wasn't that great at math. So
it's like all of a sudden Trey Lance is the number one topic in the NFL. If I say that, if I'm a big time national media guy with a huge following and I say I have the expertise to say he's not good, the Niners are doing the wrong thing, everyone will just listen to me and just to figure out why I'm saying what I'm saying. And that's what people have figured out. Like, if you want attention, talk about the 49ers. Isn't that strange? I mean, it's about time, because I always felt that the media's obsession with the Cowboys was so lame. Who cares about the Cowboys? They were good 30 years ago. They're never good. Do they really have that? I guess they have a huge fan base.
Yeah, because they're always generating the eyeballs, man. The ratings say otherwise.
But the Niners have the drama this year.
I get it. I don't like watching. Yeah, they stink this year. I mean, why else are they on Sunday Night Football this year?
Because they don't have the drama on that team is manufactured. Like, they have a good quarterback. The Niners have real drama. Yeah. And it's a great story. I love covering the 49ers. It's the only team I cover. And I mean, it's all the team I want to cover. Now you got Peter King trying to come a little late to the party. Nah, bro. And you say he's like calling a shot week 7. He's going to get benched. Dude, it's because one practice.
It's because bringing back Jimmy does. It's because bringing back Jimmy does make it like an invitation to a lot of people. Like, whoa, this is unprecedented, because it is unprecedented. It's crazy to me. I mean, look, I get your points too, and Peter, I get both sides of points. I lean with the side is there's still a little belief that, and to me, I don't think they have full trust in Lance still fully. That's just because of I don't think he's ready. It's because I don't personally. I just don't trust Kyle Shanahan. To me, that's where it comes down to. The fact that he has that option means that he can do it. And are they scarred because of all those backup quarterbacks? Yeah, I agree, because it was always bad those years, right? It was always bad, and you don't want to go down because of that one injury. It makes sense perfectly, but it's like, it's just the fact that if it's going wrong, 1,000% there's going to be some whispers or idea, not just fan or media created either. I think
all I'm saying with Lance is that his loudest critics are the people that know the least about the 49ers.
Yes.
The people that think about them the least, watch them the least, people who don't cover the NFL, people who cover all sports, all teams, and are paid to have like a compelling hot take that goes against the grain about a team they don't know anything about. I like compelling hot takes and going against the grain, but I actually really, really know this team. It's the only team I cover. So when you got someone who came to one practice and thinks about all the teams or all the sports and it says, I actually have a better perception of this, it's like, dude, no, actually no. And what you're doing is trying to get in on this gravy train over here that is Niners coverage. And you should have been here years ago. I don't know what you're thinking. You were busy talking about Des Bryant or whatever.
It's low-hanging fruit too, especially like, again, because it is such a like scenario you've never seen in league history, where you go from starter and then we're back up and then it didn't work out. And then like just the steps it took, how nuts it is to have this be the situation. It's the low-hanging fruit. It's like, oh, I'm going to have a field day with this. Let me grab that baby and talk about it all day because I have a bunch of points. Then someone's going to come back at me and we can just talk about it all day. It really is like a content haven right now with the 49ers because of this.
Yes. But what's so interesting is the way the national media is engaging with the Niners is basically all saying, I don't agree with what they're doing. Jimmy Garoppolo's great. Trey Lance is not ready. That team is, I'm not taking them seriously. They're missing it.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, they're like, I really like the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles with Jalen Hurts. I like the Eagles too. But you're going to sit there and say that Jalen Hurts is better than Trey Lance? I mean, maybe not. And then I could definitely tell you that Niners have a much, much better defense than Philly. So I feel like I keep trying to point out Niners have an elite defense. They're going to have an elite run game this year, in part because of Trey Lance. How does that team miss the playoffs? What team with an elite run game and elite defense misses the playoffs? I mean, they may not win the Super Bowl, but that's usually a recipe for like 12 wins, 11 wins, usually. Unless the quarterback is freaking awful. Awful. And the Niners, if Trey's awful, which he hasn't been ever, they can always go back to Jimmy. So it seems like this team's going to be pretty good. I don't know.
That's where I get at. It's like they can always go back to them, and it's like, no, you better not go back to them. It's like, what happens when
they're not going to be in a position where all their quarterbacks suck? If Trey sucks, which I don't think he does, then they got Jimmy. Most likely, Trey's a lot like Jimmy as a thrower in terms of final results, but a way better runner. And that's what happened with Colin and Alex Smith. Colin wasn't necessarily like a better passer than Alex Smith in terms of like completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, but the offense was better with Colin because of what he did in the run game.
And he could throw it deep, so he gives him that play action ability.
Michael Carroll says injuries happen in football. That is true. Do you know that? Injuries happen in life. I'll one-up you there. Niners know that more than anyone lately. That is true too. Loaded up on running backs, and Niners have the best 1-2 QBs in the league. Jimmy G is best backup. That's a good point. You're never going to be in a situation where Nate Sudfeld or Nick Mullins is starting. Never going to be in a situation where Jaquez Patrick is getting carries or Elijah Mitchell has to get 20 carries with a broken rib. They shouldn't be in that situation anymore, which is what they were in last year.
I think last year was also like the final straw in terms of, first it started with Jimmy, all the backups they had, and then 2020, the debacle that was with injuries. And then last year it was like, we were signing running backs off the freaking street.
Yeah.
I mean, they had freaking, what's his name? They had that running back, the old running back. I forgot his name from Alabama, but I don't know. Point is they just had randoms from the street. It was so bad. So this is the most scarred team in all of sports when it comes to injuries.
Yeah. Matthew Sanders says, just because front office bills themselves as the smartest guys in the room, it's the Silicon Valley Steve Jobs effect. No one else would have taken trade number 3.
Supposedly the Falcons were going to.
Yeah, no one else would have traded up for Trey. That was bold.
Yeah.
That was bold. And when they did it, like, oh, wow, they must really like Trey. Nope, we're going to sit him for a year. Like, man, what? That was confusing. And that opened the door for people to say they didn't like him. Young Jay said, went back and watched Mahomes 2018 preseason. He played extensively and was kind of shaky, but got better with reps. Why don't we do the same with Trey? You know what? That's very interesting. Let me go back and look up Mahomes' numbers from the 2018 preseason. It'll take me.
You get reps and you play well. Eventually play well. Crazy's concept.
2018. Okay. Kansas City Chiefs. Boom. Okay. Patrick Mahomes, you're right. He threw 43 passes in preseason. And his quarterback rating was 103. Lance threw 16 passes. That's a really good point. Good point, Young Jay. I don't quite understand why he wasn't given more reps, but I guess it's kind of old school to play your starters in the preseason. I don't know. Good call, Young Jay. I'll tell Kyle that he messed up. I'll be like, hey, Kyle, by the way, Young Jay and I disagree with your approach to preseason. Matthew Sanders says that team misses when the circus comes to town. I don't get it.
Who comes to town? The circus? Seattle?
I don't get it. Flav says, don't understand how you can say Trey has never been awful, but you watched the Arizona game. He was horrendous, but you got excuses lined up for days.
I love
horrendous. I didn't think he was horrendous. He went up again. It was his first start ever. He was playing an undefeated team on the road. They were in it till the end.
Yeah, they were in it till the end.
Kittle didn't play. Elijah Mitchell was on a pitch count because he was hurt with 9 carries. They averaged more than 5 yards a carry. Kyle called a ridiculous game. He wasn't great, but it was his first start. I thought he was not horrendous in that game. I think I gave him a C+. If I remember correctly in my grades.
Whatever. He wasn't, considering the situation, he's pretty much thrown in the fire.
Yeah.
He hadn't gotten first team reps since training. Now he didn't, not even. He got like 1 series of first team reps in training camp. He hasn't practiced with those guys. Because remember that year, he was pretty much practicing with the backups and the scout team all year.
Can you imagine what would happen if Kyle said, hey, Jimmy, you can only hand off 9 times in this game. Go get him. Like, that would never happen. And you have to run 16 times on your own. He would lose.
The best throw is the handoff.
Yeah, they didn't use Trey like that. They're never going to ask Trey to run 16. What do you run 16 times? They're never going to do that ever again. He's always going to be able to hand off 30 times.
Yeah.
Keneal Mason, because they have running backs. Keneal Mason, what's up, Keneal? I think we'll play smarter. I can't read. I think we'll play similar to North Dakota State in Trey's first year starting. Run the ball, 15, 20 throws a game with a few deep shots to keep the defense honest. It's always the smartest way to use a young quarterback is make it very similar to what he did in college. And maybe that's why they drafted him. Like, he has no ego. It's not like he said, I got to throw. A lot of quarterbacks want to throw the ball. This guy is cool handing off the ball. He doesn't have ego like that. Just saying.
And eventually, when you start making those throws, you start trusting them. Then you can try to have like a little shootout when you know you have to.
Yeah. Go back and look at the game logs for Tom Brady when he was in his first year as a starter. He wasn't throwing.
Handoff.
Yeah, man. He was a game manager, and he built from there once he showed that he was a good game manager. Excuses for days.
Look, I'd get it if Trey Lance was like a 6-year starter like Jimmy G was. We'd be slandering him. But this guy's barely starting. You got to have a little bit more of a room for error, a tolerance point. It's not excuses. You expect someone to be A+ on the job to come on? Well, let's be realistic. Let's not be a hater at this point, because this is all it's coming out to be, Flav.
Yeah, you're being a hater, man. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's quarterback rating last year was 98. Trey's was 97. So as a passer, Trey was right there with Jimmy Garoppolo. But then when you put Trey on the field, I have numbers showing that the run game was significantly better. Mm-hmm. So the offense mathematically will be better with Trey as long as he's healthy.
And look, even with other rookies and young players, we say like, yeah, it's like it's looking bad for him, but like, hey, he's picking it up. We give this, like, we're not even tight with the other rookies. At least we're consistent with other guys. That's where I get at. It's like,
all right, we got to speed this up a little bit because I got to get down to Santa Clara. Matthew Sanders says, Grant, you asked, how does a great defensive and running team miss the playoffs? A, when they get bogged down in rumors and drama, i.e. the proverbial circus. Oh, it's my fault if the Niners miss the freaking playoffs.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's my fault. #, I've been pumping this team up the last couple of weeks. Ever since they brought back Jimmy, I'm like, you know what? I don't see how this team is getting faded. The NFC's down. This team is pretty, I don't know. Jacob Mayhew says, Flav said he wants Trey to succeed, but says it's BS. Imagine trying to validate for a bum like Jimmy. Dude who never improved over his whole career. Yeah, I don't understand that, man. The team wants to run. Jimmy doesn't help running. As a passer, he's mediocre. That's not a quarterback you want. Give me, you know what I mean? It's the same situation that's happened in Tennessee, except Ryan Tannehill's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And they're still not happy with Tannehill. They're like, you know what? We've given you a shot. We want to run the ball. We got Malik Willis. So it's a matter of time before you're out, bud. Callie says, what's the harm in reserving judgment of Trey until he has some games under his belt? This is like saying the new kid is stuck up before you even speak to him in high school.
Exactly.
That is true.
Good
I
analogy.
don't like his face. Have you talked to him? No, but look at his face. I hate that.
He wears his hat a little too much to the side than I like.
Yeah, I hate people that wear their hat to the side like that. That's what it's kind of like.